A new book goes behind the scenes of Facebook to look at the tactics Facebook used to grow its business, how it manipulated the way we connect online, and the insiders who chose to speak out and expose the company's secrets.
Broken Code: Inside Facebook and the Fight to Expose Its Harmful Secrets is written by Wall Street Journal technology reporter Jeff Horwitz. Jeff joins us now live. Jeff, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
So is the premise that Facebook knew all along that it was causing problems, or did they slowly maybe dawn on the fact that maybe when they were trying to help, there were side effects?
They didn't realize from the beginning what they were doing. I think originally, this company thought that it was making the world better in every way by just connecting people and things were going to be great, right? Mark Zuckerberg in 2009 or so was saying that Facebook is actually going to solve Middle Eastern terrorism because people connect and they can't hate each other anymore. So that didn't work out quite. The company, though, after 2016, started realizing that the way its products worked was they'd been designing them consistently just to boost engagement. And it turns out that the things that boosted engagement were not always what was best for the users. So as one senior executive put it, they'd built a product that was really good for cat videos, but that when it came to politics or, kids' mental health or pretty much anything that we'd kind of generally think about as serious societal stuff, it didn't do a good job recommending things. And so what happened is kind of the platform shifted from being a place where people just kind of posted stuff and followed each other to one where the company's own algorithms made a lot of choices, and frequently they made choices that were in the company's interests in terms of engagement and growth rather than what many of the employees and users considered to be in their interests.
Yeah, and the question seems to be about the harm that it's having on society. And so I think the social media argument is, well, this is just a tool. People can do with it whatever they want to do with it. And is that a fair argument when traditional media, we have to answer to somebody, and there's government, some degree of government regulation, I guess. What do you think about that comparison?
Facebook back in the aughts, maybe even 2010, when you just followed people and you saw the posts, I think that you can make that case for it. But what happened after that is the company adopted some very heavy machine learning, AI-based kind of brute force techniques to make sure that the time people spent on the platform increased. In fact, Mark Zuckerberg had a goal of 10% every year continuing, right? And the way they accomplished that wasn't just by letting people do the things they'd naturally do. It was by pushing things and by recommending content much more heavily. The company has more than 100 different recommendation systems at play. So it's kind of hard to make the case that this is just kind of people doing what they do, because it's kind of people doing what Facebook prods them to do, if that makes sense.
But does that mean the government needs to step in, Jeff, and regulate this, that it's not just a tool that people can use however they want?
So there are right now, I think, some really interesting lawsuits from the state attorneys general on teen and child mental health and how the platform is affecting that, and how sort of optimizing for usage might not be good for kids. But the government has not done a ton of that. I think there is, still kind of this, we're still sort of getting used to this. It's kind of funny to think about social media being something that we're, almost a couple decades into at this point, because there are still a lot of things that, even inside the companies, they're still learning. So
you found all these internal documents. When faced with these internal documents between whistleblowers at Facebook, were they admitting that maybe they have been approaching this the wrong way?
This is the thing, is the company did hire a lot of people to look into ways in which its products might be harmful. And those people did really good work. The problem is that according to a lot of those people, and certainly the people who provided me with internal documents for this book and for my reporting, the company wasn't willing to fix the things if doing so was going to come at the cost of losing engagement from users, losing usage time. So they kind of did the work, and I think found some really surprising things about how the product was shaping how we talk and connect with each other. But then the company sort of just sat on that stuff for a lot of the employees.
Wow. Jeff Horwitz, I appreciate you joining us. Very insightful. From where you can check out jeffhorwitz.com and follow Jeff on X. Thank you. Broken
Thanks,
Code is the name of the book.
Thank you.